That depends on a bunch of things. So if Peter Levels posts a new app and it doesn't get traction with his whatever 200,000 followers, then it's likely not a very good idea. But if you do that with 70 followers and you don't get any traction, that's not a valid experiment. If we want to be a little more specific about this, if you have an app and you run a valid experiment, one that you can definitively say this is a negative result of a valid experiment, then yes, this app with this set of features framed in this particular way, in this particular niche, is not working. It's actually very valuable information. You can use that information to decide to throw out the entire project. You can use that information to decide to pivot. You can use that information to decide to go test another type of positioning for a different niche, or you can use that information to try to sell it on MicroAcquire, right? You can use that information many different ways, but it's actual data. But the standard experiment of putting up a landing page and then waiting for people to click on the buy button or the waitlist button, that's not a valid experiment, because it only becomes a valid experiment, A, if you're pretty good with copywriting and you know that you can write copy that sells, B, that you have a way to drive traffic in significant numbers to that landing page, which is at least hundreds, but ideally thousands of visitors over like the lifetime of the experiment. And then you can say, okay, there's a certain percentage or a very low percentage of people who convert. And even then, you get quantitative results. You can say something statistically, but you can't say anything really profound. You can't say what kind of people want this. Why do they want this? Maybe like you had 100 visitors and 2 people bought, and these are people who just like to support indie hackers, like to help people feel confident. Now,
That's pretty cool.
it's awesome, and I've done this too, like maybe 3 or 4 times. Like I was the first paying customer for a few of these indie products that became pretty big later. A really fun thing to do, but I wouldn't call it a signal. Like that's not product market fit. That's product market fit only in the sense that you're a starving indie hacker and some people want to support you. So that's my experience with driving traffic to landing pages with ads. There's so many moving parts to this thing, so
Yeah.
many variables. Your copy needs to be on point. Your call to action needs to be on point. The wording of your ad needs to be on point. It needs to match what they see on the landing page. So if you do variants of this, you need to do variants of that. The timing needs to be right. The country needs to be right. There's so many different things. And then there are like a dozen or a couple dozen different variables you can slice and dice your audience, the audience you show your ads to. And it can fail for any one of these variables. Now, if you take these like 30 variables and you say, okay, I want to run enough experiments to actually figure out the right value for each, that's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars for an experiment.
Mhm.
And companies do that,
To have
but
fun.
they don't do it on their own dime. You know, there's a statistic that like something between 80 and 85% of all VC funds flow into Google and
Non-profit.
Facebook for paid ads.
Yeah.
And I don't know that for a fact, but intuitively it seems that what they're doing is running experiments across all these variables. I spent probably around $3,000 running different ad experiments that led me to this conclusion.
Okay.
You should only
you.
try to do that once you have product market fit. Because at the very least, you know that what you're selling, people actually want to buy, and now it's only a question of finding them. So you have 29 variables to work with instead of 30.